Cheers, guys. Epics 911, welcome to the Thursday, February 16th, 2017 edition of VR News. Like with the last few days, more game releases, which is a good thing. This is what we're waiting for. First game, Theseus. Now, this is from developer Forge Reply, and according to their CTO, Filippo Rizzante, the studio is now investing significant resources into virtual reality. He hopes this is going to be the first of quite a few VR games to come. Now, it's not surprising with a name like Theseus that people have said it looks a lot like God of War. And it really does. God of War is a game I've enjoyed. Not so sure how I feel about it translating to VR, but I'd sure like to try and, see how that translation is. But apparently it's reminded people of that. No word on when it's going to come out or what platform, other than they hope to at least support two, if not all three of the main VR platforms. So, of course, Rift, Vive, and PlayStation VR. Next game is a PlayStation VR game called StarBlood Arena. This is another space cockpit flying style game with co-op and multiplayer modes. It's from developer White Moon Dreams, and we actually have a date for the game now, or rather dates, as the article points out. US, April 11th, and the EU, April 12th. No word on Asia or any other regions worldwide other than those two at this point. Now, this next little tidbit is interesting. This has to do with Resident Evil 7 VR sales. So we talked a few weeks ago about the extrapolation that was done, and it basically resulted in a figure of roughly under 10% of those who are playing Resident Evil are playing the virtual reality version. Well, now we have an updated estimate on the number of units sold for the game. Thus, they bumped up the estimate of VR people. Now, obviously, it might not scale like that, but it's an estimate. And as far as estimates go, not bad if this is true, because it would indicate that of the 1.5 million units sold of the game, almost 300,000 are VR, which, any way you slice it, because 10% doesn't sound like a lot, but 250,000 VR units, for a game that's not going to be a must-have for everybody. That's a healthy number. This next news story, Oculus, and it kind of ties in with me in the sense that at work, my sensor is waiting on my desk. I had it shipped to work and I worked from home today, so I'll grab that tomorrow so I can do my 3 sensor setups. Well, Oculus has acknowledged ongoing issues with this, and this latest one came as a result of a pretty snarky Reddit post, but the guy did a really good job. So he cut a video where in excruciatingly painful detail showed Oculus how to recreate the bug. And you'll see him. He literally maps it out and explains the bug because he had been told to date, and this is kind of where the snarkiness comes in, that they have been unable to reproduce it. And there's nothing testers love to hear more than cannot reproduce. So he went and did what any good tester worth his mettle does and basically wrote a better how to recreate. So Brendan Arebe, of all people, responded to it saying, "Thank you for sharing. We're working on core software improvements that should hopefully address these issues. This is the top priority for the next 2 releases, including 1.12, which will ship this month. We are determined to deliver rock-solid, robust tracking and appreciate all the feedback." So let's hope this February one does the trick. Now, I know some of you have reported to me that it's working fine now, and there are still a few others who continue to have issues with the 3 sensor setup. Now, this next story, not really new, but new in the sense of VR. And where it's not new is, accounts of amputees saying that they, can feel, and that's called phantom limb syndrome. So they'll feel their missing leg, or they had arthritis in their right arm, which was removed, and on a cold, rainy day, they get that sensation. Well, let's apply that to VR and with somebody who wasn't a recent amputee, but was rather born with his pinky, middle finger, and ring finger basically only up to the knuckle. So that whole top portion was not something he was born with. Now, of course, when you play Oculus Touch, when you hold the controllers and look at your own hands, you see hands with 5 fingers on each, right? 4 plus the thumb. And here's what he had to say about that. He goes, "My brain only understands having one full hand and one less than full hand. But when you have an experience that makes your hands actually look like hands, that's what triggered me." And man, do I hate that word. He continues, "It wasn't something I expected to happen, and my brain kind of internalized it the whole time. My brain kept trying to figure out what was up, and I started feeling what can only be described as tingling sensations from part of my fingers that I've never had." So very interesting how, even though he was born, and then let's face it, that's the most interesting aspect. Most people who get the phantom limb are people who had them at a previous point in their lives. And like I said, they're more recent amputees, whereas he was born with those portions of his finger missing and yet had this sensation. So definitely something that I think would bear more research. Now, this next piece isn't so much a news item as it is just pretty damn cool, if not extremely nerdy and geeky, but that's okay in my books. What this is, from someone on VR Me of Darkness, another play on VR, but that's okay. I forgive this person. But it's a recreation of Hyrule, Zelda's Hyrule. So basically the SNES version of the game. Now, I was a little late to the party in terms of Zelda. At that time, I was playing computer RPGs and felt they were more sophisticated. But I've come around. Obviously, I've mentioned that in other videos the last 15 years and caught up and basically played most of the Zeldas since then. So I can appreciate this. Looks very freaking cool. What's most interesting about this, though, is the process that this individual went through to just get it uploaded on Sketchfab, period. All kinds of technical implications, considerations that had to be taken into account, and some only discovered basically at runtime or when trying to do the upload into Sketchfab. So it's a pretty interesting read if you're interested in the techie side of things or programming. This next news story has to do with London's new Waterloo station. So for commuters of the London Tube, yeah, basically it's a new station coming, the new Waterloo station. And using Gear VR at the information kiosks, they get to actually sense the full scope and scale of the new station by literally standing in it, albeit in VR. And very cool. Now, of course, it's a mobile solution. And, you know, I've talked in the past so many times about mobile possibly giving people the wrong idea, but I think this is a very good example of it, a very good use. And what better way to introduce people to VR? I mean, people have a vested interest in commuter upgrades, including new stations. Next news story has to do with former Marvel CEO Peter Cuneo. He's been named the chairman of VR startup Uncorporeal. Now, it's a bit of a change of pace for him. Like I said, he's been CEO of Marvel. He's recently been a chairman of Valiant Entertainment, which is really the first direct gaming experience. But still, a very impressive resume, brings with him a lot of experience. It'll be interesting to see what he can do with this company. And he's expressed his desire to work with VR. He's excited about it, as he should be. He's going to be their CEO. We'll see what the future brings. So that definitely lends some clout to them for sure. Next news story, Oculus again. This time their chief software architect, Michael Antonov. He's going to be presenting April the 18th at the F8 Developer Conference, which is Facebook's annual event. And he's going to be talking about React VR. And React VR is essentially a framework. It builds on Facebook's React JavaScript library. That's a web-based framework and essentially allows for easier VR content creation. And basically can run on VR headsets right from the browser. So you're not having to load up any systems. You basically can launch into your HMD right from the browser. Again, that's going to be April 18th. And it's a continuation of what he talked about at the Oculus Connect 3 event. All right, guys, that is it for the news on this Thursday. Tomorrow is Game and Friday. As always, guys, cheers.